Hi, I'm Dori Griffin. I'm a designer and a writer and a historian, and I teach across all three of those practices in a really hybrid and multimodal way at the University of Florida. I'm talking today about social media as a tool for the design writing process in my most recent project, a book that I'm excited to share that Bloomsbury Academic will be publishing this December, Type Specimens, a visual history of typesetting and printing. And in this project, I have been really concerned with trying to push back against the familiar narrative of typographic history. Type Specimens engages networks of global exchange with 23 countries and 13 scripts represented, and a digital type postlude that's focused entirely on typographic access, equity, and inclusion. And this contributes, I hope, to shifting design's narrative toward more inclusive and equitable stories of our practice. So how did I get from this kid who loved to read to me today writing this book? Part of the process is complicated. We won't talk about it. And part of the process is not so different from the design process after all. But I want to focus specifically on using social media as a tool for this process. Of course, a book is made with pain and agony and blood and sweat and tears, but it's also made through process and through peer feedback, much like studio critique helps our work and our students' work to become better. So, of course, support from beautiful, wonderful, encouraging friends is part of what social media has done to support me as a writer. But beyond that, it has really helped me to engage with the messy process of design in a way that allows me to ask questions, to get many kinds of feedback, to sort through it, to reflect, to learn, to try again. This sounds really familiar to the design process in many ways, and that's on purpose because as a designer and a writer, I approach both of these processes in much the same way, sometimes with the same tools, but with different outcomes. I will add also that some of the feedback I've received has fundamentally shifted the way that I'm approaching the project. So it's not just a matter of getting quick answers to direct questions. Always use a splashy image, embrace the fact that it sparks engagement, but sometimes the answers are more complex. Sometimes, of course, they're more direct. I was looking for someone who read Syriac script, and the Women in Academia Support Network didn't immediately have the answer, but eventually through crowdsourcing and the generosity of other scholars, I found a tool that could help me decode Syriac script at least well enough to know what was going on. My book has these visual timelines that introduce each chapter, and I found peer feedback through social media really helpful to determine within a context what's missing. How is what I see different to your knowledge? How do I make sure that I'm not just talking to myself? So again, generous feedback from students, from fellow faculty, from random people who are social media friends and took an interest in the project, whose uncle worked in a type shop during their childhood, could help to answer some of these contextual questions that are, again, much like what we as designers ask. And of course, how do we build in access and equity and inclusion? Who gets excluded? How do we invite those folks and actually welcome them? What helps all of us to understand more and better? So I was extraordinarily lucky to work with many typographers, educators, students, random generous librarians and archivists who read languages and practice design inside visual traditions that are very different from my own. Audience, of course, is almost everything, and figuring out how to link intention to outcome is key. The process never ends, even when you're tying up the loose ends and getting ready to share in a public sort of a context. I got lots of feedback on the question of having an opinion about the cover. As you can see, number 15 was the clear winner here, but other elements of the process have benefited from the same kind of informal, immediate peer feedback. And indeed, I posted to my social media thanks for folks who gave me feedback along the way. For every single image in this book, there is a story, and it's usually related to a student who has a backstory about how their cultural heritage has been excluded in the design classroom. And I never, ever, ever want this book to be part of excluding a heritage in that way. If you'd like my slide deck, just email me. I'm happy to share as many resources as possible with as many folks as possible. Bye.